Our next step is to configure WSM, Web Service Management. This is a non-intrusive, asynchronous feature of DataPower, which we use to send payload information to MonTier, so that we get not just the metadata, but the entire business information on the message monitored. Because it's a feature of DataPower, no changes are made to the code. It's completely non-intrusive. There are only two limitations. First is, in this version of MonTier, we only record web service proxy messages. We don't record multi-protocol gateway messages. Second limitation is that you only use this for debugging purposes. This is definitely not for auditing purposes. The reason is that there is no assurance that the payload will actually arrive. This is due to the way DataPower manages its internal buffers. So we use this only for debugging, only for a limited time. Now, WSM configuration demands that SOMA is enabled, SOMA, when you configure it and when you perform a subscription. This is because the component requires an active subscription on the DataPower appliance. So in general, we need SOMA enabled when we perform all sorts of configurations, like we saw syslog, WSM, etc. When we do a WSM subscription, which we will see a little later, or when we want to monitor resources. Usually it's more convenient to just leave SOMA open. In order to activate the WSM, to use it, to record messages, you need to do two things. The first is you have to set it up, do the initial setup, which is what this button does. This doesn't actually record anything. It just prepares the ground for it. Later, when you want to record messages, you have to perform the subscription to activate the actual recording for a limited amount of time. So how do we set up WSM? We simply click this button, and this sets up WSM on all the domains, runs on all the domains and sets this up. Again, this doesn't record the messages, it just makes the initial setup. So if you want to record messages for a specific domain for a limited amount of time, we have to go to the specific domain and start the recording. This will run for a limited amount of time. It's a pre-configured amount of time. So what we do is go to the domain we want to record messages from. Let's pick the third one, second one. We go to setup, and we choose to subscribe to WSM on this domain. And we're waiting, and we got a successful message. Now, when you set up WSM, you get all sorts of payload data on your machine, which might be confidential, and maybe you don't want to keep it for very long. So you go to internal help and admin, and here you can delete all the payload information by clicking this button. We're not going to do it because it's a production machine. This concludes the WSM setup.